Kansas City, here I come. They've got some crazy...
Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series. This is a reflection on the life of a Kansas City jazz star who left us too soon, singer and multi-instrumentalist Kevin Mahogany. He left us on December 17, 2017, very suddenly at the age of 59, yet he left a huge impact on the world of jazz. From the streets of Kansas City to Miami, Florida, to New York City, and around the globe. I recently caught up with his good friend and Kansas City singing legend, Deborah Brown, to get her thoughts on his life and his passing. Have a listen.
So, Deborah, thank you for taking a minute. I know it's probably not the best of circumstances, but I definitely wanted to catch up and talk to you about your memories and recollections of Kevin and his impact on the world of jazz.
Thank you, for talking with me. Such a sad circumstances. I'm really sad. It threw me off, as it did many people, because it was such a shock. And everyone with his moving was looking forward to him being in Kansas City again. We had some projects on the line, and so it was really a real shock. But I tell you, when Kevin first made his move from saxophone to singing and decided that he wanted to go ahead and try to get a record contract, he contacted me and my husband when we were in Europe, and I told him, of course, you can come and live with us. But he never did. He went to New York. He got a contract from there, and I think I heard he had a record contract with Inja, a German record label, and he was off and running to the races and doing great music. But the time that I really got to know him this last year, I've known him through the years, we've talked through the years, but just being on the record together with him and just being on the road with him, he's a really sweethearted guy. He surprised me with his gentleness, because he was a very powerful singer, but he really enjoyed the ballads. He really enjoyed the tenderness of songs. The thing that really got me was when we were together, he did share with me about we talked about vocal things, and he said, my voice is different. I'm having to adjust my vocal because I had 2 strokes, and I was really shocked by him telling me that. I didn't know he had been sick at all. But, and I tell you one thing, I'm not interested in politics, but the one thing I was really very interested in was the fact that we were going to have a national health system. And I knew that was going to bring a tremendous relief to many musicians that were self-employed, and our biggest problem is getting health insurance. And I was really relieved when we had the Affordable Care Act. However, that didn't turn out the way that everyone thought it was going to turn out. But I was really concerned about him with his health issues. So I wouldn't say I was really surprised, but the 3rd stroke is when you have 2 strokes, that's very, very serious. So, but he was such a warm-hearted guy and great, and I just was surprised at how much he knew musically, because really he was a saxophone player. Whenever I would come into town, I'd go in here and play. He did a lot of different things. He worked with a friend of mine at the Envelope Company downtown at that Envelope Company there at Tension.
Yeah.
And, there was a lot of things. He was just a guy around town.
Yeah.
And, the fact that he got out of here and he got an international career, I tell you, I was so proud of him. He was also one of the students that my mother worked with when he went to the Charlie Parker Academy. My mom, Ann Brown, was she was the dean of music at that academy. She worked very closely with Eddie Baker, and she knew Kevin very well, encouraged him as well as she did many other musicians here in town. But I was just so proud of him, and at 59, I was really sorry to see, because I knew that when he came to Kansas City, he would just be surrounded by people that loved him. I told him, I said, don't wear yourself out because you're going to be in demand here. Don't wear yourself out.
You know, there's several questions that I have to follow that up. I kind of wanted you to take the lead, but I think the one thing that strikes me about Kevin, and I hear this with those that pass away unexpectedly or when people aren't expecting it, like, say, Jerry Allen, you don't understand the impact. You don't understand the heart and the soul and how much they mean to the world of jazz. And it appears to me, you know, Kevin had a legacy that was huge here and branched out and went bigger when he left, but there was something that was special about him that, you know, what do you think the world of jazz is going to miss the most out of someone like Kevin?
Well, number one, a male singer. The world is going to miss another male singer because there's not many of them. There's not many of them left. There's not many of them around. You got Kurt Elling, you know, you got some of these singers, but people that like Johnny Hartman, Mark Murphy, I mean, people that are, you know, for years we've heard that music and they've set the standard. And Kevin was one of those that actually ended up setting the standard for male vocalists. So I think that will be missed. And he came along at a time where he knew that there weren't that many male vocalists. And he knew that when he approached it and approached the record companies with that point of view, hey, look, there's not many of us out here. You know, you've got to give me a break because you got to put somebody else out there on the scene. And they saw it in the way that he saw it. He did a pure business pitch. There's a lot more male jazz vocalists. However, at the time that he came along, there wasn't hardly anyone out there. Yeah. So he came along at the perfect time, and he filled a void. And people love to hear men singing, especially good, deep voices. Joe Williams, you know, I mean, like, who doesn't enjoy voices like that? Or Witherspoon, who doesn't enjoy a voice like that, you know? Sure. So, yeah. He came along at a time, and actually he was able to fill that spot because he had the voice to do it.
Well, you know, as sudden and as bad as it is that he passed, what do you think it means that he came home and he actually came back to Kansas City and he was here when this happened? Do you think there was something about that?
Well, you know, he's lived a lot of different places. I remember when he was teaching in Berkeley. I remember when he was in Miami. And I knew he had been really eagerly looking forward to coming back to Kansas City. I think that his family is very important to him. Every time he came into town, it was a big thing for him, you know, to be in contact with his family. And I think that's one of the things that pulled him back. Now, I can't say that for sure, but that's just the way it seemed with me on the outskirts, that he was drawn to his family and his wife. You know, and it may have been stemmed from his wife also wanting to move back to Kansas City, and it's a jazz, you know, this is the jazz town now. Yeah. So I'm sure he was looking forward to coming back to the middle of the country, because I'll tell you this, for someone who travels as extensively as he did, coming back to the Midwest was a big decision, because that adds another 4 hours to your travel. It's already 13 hours to Europe. So for him to make that leap, take that leap of faith to come back to Kansas City, meant this was a move that he felt like it was necessary for he and his wife for whatever reason. And I think coming back here was a great choice because everyone was just waiting for him to show up.
Yeah. Well, the beauty of recorded music is that he's going to live forever, and he's left a lot of good music behind, so that will always be a very a good imprint.
You bet.
But, Deborah, thank you for taking a minute out to talk about
Joe.
Kevin. I'm looking forward to kind of doing a remembrance on the show and paying homage to his life, and have a great holiday season.
You take care. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Kansas City, Miami, New York, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And profound thanks to Kevin for all the jazz that he gave to the world, and for Deborah for her time and sincerity. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
I'm going to get me. Whoa. Kansas City, here I come.
Neon Jazz.